Alright, so today I'm gonna be talking about level 777 of the Backrooms, also known as true Scopophobia. The name will all make sense in a bit, but anyways, let's get on with the video, shall we?
Swiftbit decided to explain the level 777.
Alright, so level 777 is a desolate city, stuck at night, stretching infinitely with no end in sight. Most of the level is in a monochromatic gray, except for the lights coming from the street lights. The architectural design of the buildings has got a blocky look to them. The layout of the city seems to repeat in the same pattern, occasionally alternating the layout. There are parks, train stations, and even metro stations, but they're all fenced off. If you try to force your way in, you'll be pushed back. There are no cars, no people, but there are footprints that we've no idea who they're from. The level is devoid of any life. The only sign of life in this level are the dead patches of grass next to the sidewalks. The city is always under this dense fog that makes it hard to see and hides the sky. Oh, and forget about bringing any gadgets. They're pretty much useless here. Compasses just spin around, GPS and mobile devices won't boot up, many devices for transmitting signals get all wonky, no matter how high quality they were initially. Also, if you try to use a flashlight, forget about it. They don't work here. The only reliable light source here comes from the street lights, although they will start to flicker the longer you stay in the level. You'll hear an eerie ambience with faint radio music playing if you listen closely. The source of the music is to be determined, but what we know is that the type of music changes depending on your nationality. The level's ambience is very similar to level -69, which kinda suggests that two levels might be connected. Only one person can be in level 777 at any given time. The level will duplicate itself for each person who enters. If you decide to stay for a long time, you'll start to feel like you're being watched or stalked. This feeling will prompt you to enter one of the buildings. You can't really stop the urge unless you exit the level early. But if you try hard enough, you might be able to resist the urge. The interesting thing is the buildings are locked when you first get to the level, but they will become accessible when you start feeling watched. Once this happens, two different scenarios could go down. The first scenario kicks off when the wanderer steps into any of the buildings. Oddly enough, every building will lead to the same gray interior, which is a total contradiction to the exterior dimensions and appearance. As soon as you're in, all exits are immediately blocked off, unable of opening or destroying them. The windows are pitch black. The inside is a series of tiny rooms linked by narrow, elongated hallways and tight stairwells. Sometimes you might even have to crouch to navigate through these claustrophobic spaces. The place is dimly lit by small, faint lights. The architecture is hard to describe, but it's similar to a stretched attic. You'll find grayscale paintings of nature scattered across the walls. The rooms are filled with random stuff, from static TVs that you can touch to random stacks of mattresses. The floor is covered with a gray carpet, said to contain the same carpet fluid from level 0. The structure is indestructible and can't be no-clipped through. Right after you enter, the ambience from outside stops, leaving only the radio music from the outside. After about 5 minutes, the radio music from the outside stops, and the lights start to dim. You start to feel uneasy, like you're being watched. After about 15 minutes, you'll hear continuous knocking on the doors, walls, and windows. After about 20 minutes, the knocking stops, replaced by the sound of a door creaking. Wanderers reported you might feel the urge to hide, especially in rooms with doors. After about 30 minutes, you'll hear footsteps and furniture rattling. If you try to use any device to communicate outside the level, the signal will be distorted. After about 45 minutes, the paintings and TVs will temporarily display static for roughly a minute. And then right after, they will display images of you from the perspective of the object. By this point, the light should be so dim that you can barely see, basically pitch dark. After about 48 minutes, all the doors will widely open by themselves and remain open, with being unable to close them. The footsteps will get louder as if something is approaching. If you look in the mirrors, you might see a black figure in the corner of the room, or two white eyes in the reflection, even though they're not physically there. At the 50-minute mark, the whole level will instantly go pitch black, putting an end to all light sources and visibility. You'll hear and feel heavy breathing right behind your neck. Whatever you do, do not turn back. If you do so, there's not much more info about this anomaly or what happens next. Some lucky survivors claim that if you hang in there long enough, you might find a way out. But given the small number of survivors, we can't really confirm these claims. You might be wondering, what if you resist the urge to enter these buildings? That's when scenario 2 kicks off. Besides the creeping sensation of being watched or stalked, the initial minutes are pretty quiet. I won't be going into the details of what happens next in this scenario, as it's almost a replica of scenario 1. However, just as in scenario 1, some wanderers argue that if you can survive long enough, you'll find an exit. While there's a lot of evidence pointing towards entities, who really knows? It's also entirely possible that these entities are just anomalies created by the level, or they could just be the wanderer's own hallucinations. Maybe your brain is trying to make the place more interesting. Either way, it's best not to stick around to find out. Well, you might be wondering, how do I make sure I never end up in this monochromatic hellscape? Well, here are a few things to avoid. Dying on level 272 brings you here, so make sure not to do that. Reaching the end of a roller coaster with a bad karma rating in level 999 might bring you here. Going through a white door in level 666.1 will bring you here. Seeing the landscape shift after leaving level -9 might bring you here. Escaping level 777 is tricky, but not impossible. The people who escaped the level were unable to specify the exact exit point, but they claimed that they were able to get out after surviving the final anomaly. Still, there is one certain exit you should probably look for if you ever get thrown into this level. A tunnel that surfaces infrequently, and it'll ultimately transport you to level -69.